Hello, America, and to our friends around the world. Welcome to the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. Really good to be with you. And you need to know we defend God, family, country in that order, and we have a special place for the oppressed. And we think that's very biblical. And we're really glad to be with you. We are brought to you by products that really not only saved my life, but gave me a high quality of life. And it's the Nanosoma liquid spray. On the starter pack, you get three of these. And I got to tell you, I've never been the same. I had strip lung linings with RSV, doctors saying, specialists saying, Dave, I'm afraid it's not coming back, not at your age. And I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. I was so debilitated. Well, within a week of using this product, I was walking up the stairs. In a month, I was back in the gym. But then I had problems with joint inflammation, arthritis, all the things I've been suffering from. And I was told, hey, use the gel. Took me 6 weeks to notice a big difference, 8 weeks before I felt pain free, basically able to do what I want in the gym. Now, for you, it might vary the time of effect, but it does have an effect. And then, of course, there's the skin cream. If you're vain, it's okay if you have a little vanity, you got fine lines and wrinkles, but I like it for the cuts and burns that you're going to get. Promotes healing. Together, that's the starter pack, 15% off. Go to iwantmyhealthpack.com/Dave Hodges. iwantmyhealthpack.com/Dave Hodges. Okay, let's take a look at something that President Trump just said. And I'm going to confess to you, part of me is in mourning for my lost president. The man who I really felt had the best interest of the people at heart. I didn't agree with everything he did. I certainly didn't agree with everything he said. Sometimes I thought he was insensitive and crass, but I thought he really had the best interest of the country in heart. And I think, at least I thought he was going to be the second George Washington to restore the republic. He said affordability, affordability, affordability. He said, look, I brought gas down to $1.95. Look at that, under $2. Well, recently he just made a speech, and it was in front of military personnel. And he said, yeah, look at, I brought you great, 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 great gas prices. But we had this little problem in the Middle East. Iran getting a nuclear weapon. And, the media will never hold him to account because the media is in line with what's happening. And he said, Iran, oh, Israel said they were 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Wait a minute. They've been saying that for 40 years. 40 years. No president ever acted on this. None. But Netanyahu, are we going to argue that he's not a warmonger? The genocide in Gaza, international court action against this, well documented, attacking journalists in Gaza. Then you have the Greater Israel Pact turning Gaza into a technological haven and relocating the Palestinians to, quote, new Somaliland. Oh, this has been approved by the UN Security Council. This is not controversial. And I look at this and I'm saying, who benefits from this war? It's not you paying higher prices for gas. It's not you for paying higher prices at the pump. It's not you for living in an inflated economy. Everything that we buy is almost everything is virtually shipped. If gas goes up, the prices go up. And you know what's interesting about core inflation? And Trump is not the generator of this. This started back in the 60s. But they don't count core inflation. And what I mean by core inflation, they don't count in the inflation rate the price of gas or the price of food, like you don't have to eat or drive to work. That's got to be the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Of course, that should be counted. But because there's been so many games played with Middle East oil, faking shortages in the 70s, some of you, I'm sure, remember the long gas lines. We're going to run out of oil by 1990. Do you remember that nonsense? Remember the population bomb, that book? Yeah, okay. Well, here we are in 2026, and it was much ado about nothing. We were flat lied to jack up the price of gasoline. There were tankers, as we were told, that were lining up for weeks, sometimes a couple of months, before they were allowed to unload the oil to create these shortages. Oh, we have to lower the speed limit to 55 miles an hour. Do you remember that? Thank goodness for that song, I Can't Drive 55. Yeah, great song. The When you look at how we've been manipulated, there's no difference here. You know, one person said this comment, and I've seen proof of it. If gas goes up 5 cents a gallon, it's really going to go up 25 cents a gallon because of the profiteering. And it's true for a lot of things across the board. Inflation's become the 24/7 excuse to raise prices above the cost of living increase. I, for one, am tired of this. You, for one, should say, I'm done dealing with this. Trump, in his speech in front of a military audience, he said, I'm not going to apologize for $4 a gallon for gas. Well, you're now going to have to apologize for $4.50 a gallon of gas because that's what we're paying in many stations in the Phoenix metropolitan area. This is ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. We're fighting a war on behalf of the greater Israel pact. Well, wait a minute, hold on. If you're a Christian, it's your duty to pay more. So Israel can have the war that they need to expand through the Middle East without Iranian interference. I don't think so. Wait a minute. Genesis 12:3. We're going to cover that in the next segment because when we say Genesis 12:3, we got to go back in our history and talk about things like dispensationalism. We're going to talk about the Schofield Bible. We're going to talk we're going to talk about Galatians 3 and what Paul wrote to the church of Galatia. We're going to talk about this because it's time to really expose this falsehood. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee. Listen, you've heard me talk about Mike Huckabee. He used to come out to the New California constitutional meetings, the proposal for the 51st state, which I was lucky enough to present at. And I got to eat lunch with Mike. I got to interview him there and got to share ideas with him. He's a good guy. Honestly, he's a decent human being, but he has been deluded. And we're going to talk about that delusion in the next segment. But right now, the president who ran on affordability says, oh, we've got to stop Israel from being destroyed by Iran's nuclear weapons. Yeah, 40 years of exaggeration, 40 years of lies. And all of a sudden, they're going to have a nuke in 2 weeks. Wait a minute, what happened last June? Right? June of 2025. Well, what happened, this is amazing. This is what happened. We bombed the heck out of Iranian so-called nuclear research facilities. We devastated them, says President Trump. Our military is the best in the world, and we devastate them. No question, military carried out the duty they were assigned, and you did it professionally, and you did it well. But why do we have to go back again? Why are we on the verge of sending ground troops? Oh, we are on the verge. You know, one of the things when you grow up in a community and you start to work in certain areas and your contacts are a lot of intelligence people, DHS, they're all saying the same thing. It's either ground troops or a nuke. Oh, I hope we don't drop a nuke on Iran. The amount of people that this would affect is not worth replacing the ayatollahs or the imams. I hope we don't have a ground war because I don't want to see these young American kids come home in body bags. Did we not learn anything from Vietnam? Wars based on false premises. Only the bad thing about this, when you had the Vietnam War, Chrysler Corporation, owned by the Rockefellers, got 90% of all U.S. defense contracts. They benefited, and there were jobs created. So you could say, well, that was a good thing. The military industrial complex as a whole, places like Lockheed Martin, then called Martin Marietta, and Raytheon and all these other corporations made money hand over fist. So it did benefit some people. It didn't benefit the 58,000 Americans that died in a 10-year period. It didn't benefit the millions of South and North Vietnamese people that died unnecessarily. We're saving the world from communism. Well, we know now from the SALT talks and all the things that happened after the collapse of the Soviet Union going into the 90s that the CIA greatly exaggerated the Soviet nuclear capacity. We were lied to. We've got to, if we don't fight them in Vietnam, we'll fight them in California. Okay, well, with things like nuclear weapons and directed energy weapons, the idea of the domino theory is dead and buried. It no longer applies. And even if it did, we fought that war on false premises, and history is going to judge if we survive it. This war, the same way. And this war has the potential to go worldwide. We've already seen the sinking of a ship that had Russian sailors on it with defensive missile systems headed for Iran. This is bad news. How much is Putin going to put up with? China is just waiting for us to exhaust our missile supply. I think we're opening up Taiwan to danger. I think this is a terrible foreign policy move on that basis. We need Taiwan as an ally. I mean, just the industrial part with the computer chips they produce, we need Taiwan. And it's also the right and moral thing to do. Because if the Communist Chinese Party ever got a hold of Taiwan, what do you think would happen to their government leaders and the leaders of their society? What does history show you about the CCP? But it's Israel driving American policy. But don't forget, it's your duty, America. It's your duty. You have to do what Israel says. Your duty, America. Well, we're going to expose that myth biblically right here on the show. And let me just say this, okay? The quarter part of me that is Jewish by bloodlines from my grandma Freiberg, maiden name. That lady was a good lady. I met my great grandmother Freiberg. They lived with us for a while. I loved them. In fact, they're Jewish. Didn't even matter to me. Didn't even enter into my thinking when I was a child. I just knew they were family and they did nice things for me. It's not about being Jewish or not Jewish. I don't want bad things to happen to Jewish people ever, ever. We should have intervened when we knew the Holocaust was going on. We should have, and we didn't. And you had elements of Wall Street supporting the rise of Hitler. They thought they were building a trading partner. I don't think they thought they were embellishing the Holocaust. But when we found out this was going on, we should have taken steps to stop it. So for my Jewish brothers and sisters in Israel, this is not about you. You have a wholly corrupt leadership in Netanyahu, as evidenced by the conduct of the IDF under his orders in Gaza, something Charlie Kirk pointed out graphically on the PBD podcast. Graphically pointed it out. I think that was, well, I'll just leave that there. We can't continue the way we're going. President Trump is strongly insinuating, I'm not going to apologize for oil prices. Well, that means I'm not going to apologize for making America unaffordable. Last comment, 65% of our nation say they can't afford a $500 car repair bill. How much more of this can our nation take? It's a good question, isn't it? Remember, Iran's only 2 weeks away. Well, this war started on February 28th. Let's see, March, April, May, June, July. We're almost 6 months into this war. What happened to the 2 weeks? And if we bombed their facilities into oblivion and we prevented nuclear weapons, okay, then why are we still there? It's time to pull up roots, pull up the anchor, and sail away. But that doesn't seem to be the agenda now, does it? We're going to look at this biblically. and this notion that America should kowtow to a foreign nation named Israel. I'm Dave Hodges. This is the Common Sense Show. God bless all of you. We'll see you back here again next time.